and welcome to Crafting a Revolution, the podcast. My name is Katie Freeman, and I'm your host. Every Wednesday and Friday, I bring you interviews from female and non-binary makers of all kinds from all over the world. Today's guest is Leilany of Wildly Capable Carpentry. I first kind of found Leilany on Instagram and just really love all the things that she's doing, and was excited to get the opportunity to learn about her journey, a fairly relatively new journey into woodworking and carpentry. So excited to have her as a guest today. Before I hop on into it with her, I want to give a big shout out and thanks to the patrons over on Patreon. So thank you so much, Lee at Lee Runyon, Annette 513 Woodworks, Katie Thompson, Women of Woodworking, Kevin Lefty's Woodshop, Christy Twisted Twine, Jeremy Speece, Sammy Go Sammy Lee, Rachel Moody Makes, Bonnie Toolmom Bonnie, toolmomstore.com, Laura Oakley Soap Company, Brandy Studio Obey, Lee the Rainbow Carver, Ellen Little Bear Furniture, and Ethan Carter Designs. Thank you all so very much for your continued and ongoing support, helping me to produce 2 episodes a week every week. If you would like to get your name added to this list, you certainly can. Just head on over to patreon.com/crafting a revolution and join up with the pod squad over there. Can't wait to see you over there and get your name added to the top of the list to be read off every podcast episode. All right, let's head on into the episode with Leilany. So I like to start by asking my guests to introduce themselves. So would you do that for me?
Yeah. My name is Leilany Velasquez. I live in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I've been in the woodworking realm for about 2 years now, I would say.
Okay. So does that put you starting right before the pandemic, or did you get started with the pandemic?
I would say at the very beginning of the pandemic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to start, I guess, with kind of a broader question, and that is just to ask, what is your story? Where'd you grow up, and kind of take us along to how you got to what you're doing now.
Okay, so we go all the way back. I was born and raised in California, and then I moved out to Arkansas. So that was a pretty big change. I just remember when I first got to Arkansas and seeing the chicken coops. I didn't even know what they were. And then seeing cows in people's yards, I was like, I didn't even know people had cows as pets. But it was good. I lived there in Arkansas for about 11 years. And then I moved out to Tennessee for college. And pretty much I majored and graduated in psychology, clinical psychology. But just due to circumstances, I ended up just getting a job in human resources. So I did human resources for, I would say, about a year. Not a complete year. It was about 9-10 months. And then the pandemic hit. And due to the pandemic, I was let go. Just because I was one of the newest ones to the company. Mm-hmm. And honestly, our company in 2 weeks went from 6,000 employees to 3,000. So that was a lot. And then about, I would say 2-3 weeks after that, our town, Chattanooga, had a tornado that wiped out a good chunk of our place, and I was impacted in that spot because my apartment complex It was right on the road near where the major stuff happened. So I didn't really have a place to like live for the moment. I was unemployed, questioning whether I wanted to keep in my career, not in my career. So just like all these like big old life choices coming at once and like kind of unexpected. Um, so me and my husband, which at the time was my boyfriend, decided to just go down to Florida and visit his family for a few days while like maybe I looked for a new place or like try to figure some things out. So we headed out there, and I want to say we stayed out there for like a week or two. I can't remember, but it was good. They live on a farm out in Florida, and while I was there, just random, they were like, "Hey, do you mind helping us build a bed? We really want a new one." And like I had no background in woodworking. I didn't know what a miter saw was. I didn't know anything. I think the only thing I could tell you what was a drill. Um, and I was like, yeah, like I'll do my best. I have nothing else to do. I'll do my best and we'll go from there. And so I found a plan online, random plan. I think it was from Anna White. Um, and we just hit it off. And it went from a bed to a table to a mudroom bench. And so within that short time, I had built like these 3 items, and like I just fell in love with the art of it. It's just everything, the process of turning wood into something. Um, it was just amazing. And I didn't expect anything of it, but I was really proud of what I did. So I just posted the photos on Facebook or Instagram. I can't remember the time, just to like kind of show off what I was doing. And like out of nowhere, I just started receiving messages saying, "Hey, like, would you build another one? I'm interested in buying." And several messages like that that just caught me completely off guard. And I was just like, what? I didn't know people would want to buy from me knowing I have no experience or like, but everyone's like, just go for it. What's the worst that could happen, you know? So I did. I started building like beds, tables. I even started just whatever asked. So like the patio bed swings, and like very very early on, I even made this very custom snake cage. That one was probably my hardest project to that date, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I was like, I want the challenge, and they know what I'm capable of, I guess, and we're gonna go with it. And that cage turned out amazing. And so yeah, it honestly, it just like it ran from there. I wasn't prepared for all the like the business it would receive, but I was more than grateful. Um, and I just started doing it and fell in love with it and was able to maintain it as my job, um, which was a huge blessing. I think not everyone can say like you can turn a hobby into a job or what you love into a job. Um, that being said, though, I mean, I'm sure you're aware, like having a business is no joke. It's no walk in the park. Um, and being me, having like no background in really in business or in entrepreneurship, it came a point where like it kind of all hit me, and I realized I wasn't really ready for the business world because I had not prepared that to become a business, but it just ran. So I had to then kind of step back and take it slower and kind of relearn what I was doing in a way and be able to do the business side properly, um, and just learn about the business. And I think that's been the hardest part. Just setting limits for yourself, knowing boundaries, financial aspects. Yeah, so here
Yeah.
I am. I think it's pretty funny. Just if you had told me like later in my future I would be building, I would honestly just never believe it. But there was this story because I always grew up from a young age. I was like, I want to be a psychologist. I'm going to be a psychologist, and that's the only option I have. But it was funny because in high school, um, there's these tests. I can't remember if it's the ACT or the SAT I took,
Mhm.
but one of them you take them and then it kind of tells you like what kind of career you'd be good in. And I remember clearly I took it, and my number one like category for what I would be good in was it straight up came as carpentry and handyman work. And I was just so confused because all my friends were getting like nursing, like people relations. And I was like, I feel kind of offended. Like, why? I was like, why carpentry? I'm a girl. Like, did nothing catch this? And then, but then now, like, looking at where I'm at and then seeing that, like, it's crazy. It's funny. And here we are. Like, I mean, it was right, like,
Yep.
what I do best. And I had a lot to learn in the field. Like, if you believe in yourself, you just do it. And it's not one gender. It's literally, if you want to, just do it.
Mhm.
And I think it's been amazing.
Awesome. I feel like that's like a true, like, I don't know, like comeback story for like, a moment of what I can only imagine felt very like overwhelming and probably scary and like, what the hell am I going to do with my life right now?
Yeah.
To like getting into something you've never done before. Um, I mean, like my mind went straight to kind of like a logistical question of like, okay, so you got to do those builds in a short period of time with, I'm assuming um, your in-laws like had the tools there. So like, how did you, if you didn't have any of those tools of your own, like even getting started when you came back and people asking you to make stuff, like how'd you even go about like getting all that to work out?
So that's a really good question. So, I had no tools, absolutely no tools. I was just like recently out of college, still renting houses, apartments with roommates, housemates. So I had no garage really, no tools. But after the storm, I did move into a house that had a garage. So that was a huge blessing. I was always in apartments, and this time I went into a house. Um, with the tools, my father-in-law gifted me my very first tool, which was a miter saw. Um, and I think that's one of the very like fundamental
Mm-hmm.
tools that you need for woodworking. So that was a huge blessing. And then from there, people started hearing just kind of what was happening, and they literally just started donating me tools. Um, I was donated a router table, a bench press. So with so much help from the community, um, I was able to just buy the few that I really needed, which was like a table saw. So really, the only ones I've ever really purchased were table saw. Um, and then later on, I started just purchasing like more hobby tools, like a lathe, for my
Mm-hmm.
own. But with the community being gifted, and then Heart Tools stepped up and started helping a lot too. Um, I I don't know. I never really had to worry about tools, and I know that's not everyone's story. And I
Mm-hmm.
know tools, their prices are not a joke. Um, but I was just
Yeah, when you
very,
say like community, are you talking just like a local community or like maker community or
I would say mostly local, mostly like friends, family, but I did have a few when I first started my Instagram. I did have a few people on in the like woodworking community that were like, "Hey, like, do you need anything?" And they would literally ship me clamps, and all that sort of thing, which I don't know, it was so shocking to me. And I think that's where I first learned of the woodworking community, like on Instagram, online. It's such a tight and like strong community, I think.
mm-hmm. Hey makers. So today's podcast episode is sponsored in part by Alicia Van Osdal, who is the owner of Basil Blue Design Company. Alicia is a maker of all things, really. Her focus is on beautiful craftsmanship through woodworking, repurposing, refinishing, art, and sculpture. Her background includes 30 years of graphic design, logos, and branding. If you have an idea or concept that and need a creative solution or graphic design, you can email Alicia directly at Alicia, and that is ALICIA at basilblue.com. Or you can visit her website at www.basilblue.com. And fun fact, Alicia actually designed the logo for Crafting Revolution. So that is an example of the impeccable work you can expect if that is something you are in the market for. So be sure to look up Alicia again at her website, basilblue.com. All right, let's get back into the action. Yeah, I think in that way, like I definitely consider like Instagram a blessing because it's allowed me to like connect with, people who have a passion for doing
Yeah.
similar stuff, like not even just all over the country, but all over the world.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's like, I still can't, I probably couldn't even name 5 people like in my local area that do, do woodworking. But I have, a strong community online. So, um, I want to pivot then back into like what you said, like learning about the business, like that is hard. I mean, outside of just like continuing to learn skills to build.
Yeah.
That's like its own thing. But then like how do you figure out how to like price your stuff and like taxes and all of that in a very short, like really a short amount of time? What what kind of resources and stuff were you looking to help get through that?
So when I first started, I think my brother has always been like such a huge supporter, always just trying to push me through life. And he knew people who worked. I should have looked these people up before. But like I know they're like a company that they're in every state, and they do give like free courses on learning how to do taxes, learning how to start a business, learning like what kind of loans you could do and when, and like they're just a huge thing. And I first started there. I don't have family members with history of business owning. I didn't know anyone close to me that owned a business that I could go talk to and like have as a mentor. So I kind of just felt like I was on my own, which was a little bit harder to. Um, so I just kind of clung to these people who gave free courses. It was a huge like stepping stone, I guess, like really good understanding. But also, I think my biggest hit was with learning how to price myself correctly.
Mhm.
At the very beginning, I did struggle a lot with pricing just because I felt I was new. I felt like I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't value my work for that same reason, even though everyone else did, because they would see the end product, and
Right.
it was they were great. Like it was nothing short of like anything, but I didn't think myself like that because
Mhm.
I was learning, and I was like, oh, I don't want to charge people. I don't have experience. Like these other woodworkers have like 15 years plus. Um, and it just like, an I don't know what it takes for someone to learn their own value in their art. But I think that is one of the biggest struggles, especially like when I didn't have this problem that often, but I would have it at the very beginning where it's like people would come to you and be like, hey, I want this built. And then you do your best to give them a price that's fair.
Mhm.
And then they come back with the whole like, oh, well, it's cheaper on Wayfair or on
Right.
in a Walmart. And or like, oh, why are you so expensive? You know, so like all that stuff at an early stage, not knowing like your value kind of like hits you in a different way.
Mhm.
But I've learned that I know my work. I'm not gonna go lazy in my work. I'm gonna give it all I have for you. Um,
Mhm.
and so with that being said, like I learned that my competition isn't Wayfair, it isn't a factory, it isn't Walmart.
Mhm.
Those are not my competition, not at all. So when people like message me and they're like, "Hey, I want this built, I want a good deal on it," at that point, I don't know. I think talking with people at the very beginning, you can kind of get a feel for what they're looking for, and if it's more of affordability, then I am serious with them. I am honest with them, and I'm like, "Hey, I don't think I'm the right choice. I'm not here for deals. I'm not here for like coupons.
Yeah.
I'm a maker. I'm a small business owner. This is my job. I'm hands on everything. So I do lead them to other places they could get the things they want from at a better price. I don't leave them just hanging also, but I am honest and upfront of that probably won't be a possibility. Um,
Yeah.
in my
I do the same thing. Um, a lot of times it's like, I don't know, I can kind of tell just in the way someone reaches out, like,
yeah, yeah,
and usually I sometimes I don't even really ask too many questions, and I'll just be like, just so you know, like, you're probably going to be able to find something cheaper even on Etsy
yeah,
versus me. Um, and so, I'll be like, you can go check there. I know that they have good deals and stuff. Um, Especially like, even if it's like something that you can't buy on like a Wayfair or whatever, like you have to get it handmade. I've learned to understand like the Etsy reference of just like there's people that like that's all they make, and so they've like set up and become efficient at making that one thing
yeah,
over and over and over again, and so they can give more savings than I do because it's not something I make all the time.
yeah.
And
It's not your
so
specialty.
yeah, and so it's like, okay, go find this person over here because you'll be able to get it probably for half the price that I can do it, just because I'm not set up to do this. Like, I don't have all the jigs and fixtures set up to make this go and be done in like, half a day. It's going to
Yeah,
take me a couple days to do it. Like,
yeah,
that type of thing. So I think my hope is that people find value in that, in the sense of like, if I'm honest and upfront like that and don't sell myself short, that maybe if they reach a point in time where they want something that's like more custom and going to be, higher end price range, that they might remember like, oh, she was willing to like send me somewhere else that last time, that maybe I'll reach out to her this time type
yeah.
thing.
Building trust in a relationship,
Yeah.
even though it wasn't there, but
Right.
in the long run, they'll remember that.
Yeah. Um, is there something along that line, like, because I know just from following you, it seems like you kind of do like a whole bunch of different stuff. Is there anything that like you're looking to like start specializing in, or are you kind of looking to stay like a Jane of all trades type thing?
Yeah, so funny question. I actually am looking to specialize. Kind of going off the last question, I had initially started doing custom furniture. So at that point, you pretty much are open to anything and everything.
Mhm.
Um, but I did learn it. That's just, I don't think that's the way I want to go or continue to go. It is, I feel like, a lot more difficult than specializing, just because it's never the same plan, it's never the same measurement, it's never the same.
Mhm.
So it takes a lot more work, it takes a lot more time. um, and I just didn't think I was there yet.
Mhm.
Just with everything that was going on in my life at the moment, I was also like trying to get married. So learning about a business and then also trying to do like very, very custom work, and then not being very good with the pricing of it, just for self value, I guess. Um, it just became something that I kind of dreaded. I woke up and I was like, I don't want to go to the shop. I don't want to do this. And it started getting in a very bad mood about it. And I realized that's just custom furniture wasn't for me. So recently I've had to again pull it back a lot and kind of take a break, um, reset my mind and kind of figure out where I want to take this business. And I guess one thing I didn't mention is the reason I started this business was because when I first started building, it really just shows you like your self-worth to yourself. Like you learn to develop this whole new different self-confidence, um, the ability to like trust yourself and like doing something. And it was a crazy experience for me. I learned a lot about myself in just simply building. And
Mhm.
I wanted other people to be able to experience that. And if anyone was going through something and were just doubting themselves, like, hey, let's build something together. And like, you're just going to learn a lot about yourself. And in the end, I think there's a newfound love for yourself. Um, and pride too. Like, you just
Mhm.
made something out of nothing, you know? Um, and so with that being said, that was my goal. But because this business took off so fast and it kind of got out of my hands, that that goal, that purpose completely left. And like I never had time to focus on it. Um, and when I started dreading it, I started noticing, um like, also, like, I was dreading it because I wasn't doing anything of what I initially had planned to do. Like, my whole purpose of it was to help people, mental health, and like none of that had been implemented just because of everything got so out of hand. Which, and it was great. Like, I'm not going to complain. Like, having business, I mean, that's a
Right.
blessing, you know. um but I did want to step backwards and just pretty much start over, I guess. Even just with like my logo itself, when I first started, I had this vision of what I wanted my logo to be. But then I was like, oh, this is like a man dominated field. I don't want to come in all girly and then people are going to discredit me and then not believe in me. So then I went with a logo that was more like, I guess, manly. I don't know how to explain it. But then when I reeled back, I was like, no, you know what? Like, I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to do the vision I've wanted. I don't care about like what's expected or what is most common.
Mhm.
Um, and I redesigned my logo. I restarted everything. I restarted my goals, implement them a little bit harder. Um, and kind of still focusing on what I want to specialize. Um, I was, I think, so I started been in this for about 2 years. The first year, was great. The business took off, but then I stepped back to learn about business. The second year, I think there was just so much going on in my life. I've had to step back a lot because of the business. I think my mental health was really like declining. It was like it was needing help. So, and then also in the process of that, I was needing to get married. I had a wedding to do. So with all that, I think the hardest thing for me was to say, Leilany, stop. Like, you're gonna run yourself into the ground. And it's hard. It's hard to see that like you could be advancing and you're having to tell yourself
Mhm.
to stop and start over. And so I think that was a pretty big struggle with myself, but I did it, and I'm still in the process. Like, I feel very inconsistent on my Instagram right now. I haven't been showing up as I wanted to, but I think at some point you have to learn to put yourself first, especially when you're the main person running your business. Like, you're everything. You're the photographer, you're the financial person, you're the marketing person, you're the maker.
Mhm.
Um, Definitely yourself needs to come first. And so with that being said, I've been thinking, kind of been trying everything to see what I want to specialize in. I guess I went the long way around this question, but I've tried new things like the lathe. I love the lathe, really need to get into it. But I maybe even just keep that one as a hobby, as a
Mhm.
relaxer for myself. Um, I've been trying like wedding decor, wedding signs. I'm loving that one. If like that could take off, that would be amazing. I still do some pieces of furniture. It's mostly if it's a repetitive order,
Mhm.
I'll stick to it. But like custom, I'm kind of backing away from. Um, and then recently, I made a pretty big purchase, which I haven't received it yet. It's on back order, so it won't get here until like 2 more months. But I did make the purchase of a CNC.
Mhm.
So I think that's a pretty big step for me. And I think that's very exciting. And with that being done, I'm just seeing the possibilities, and probably will be going into some sort of area in that.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I honestly, if you, to say I have found my niche, if that's the word,
Yeah.
I haven't quite found it. And I think that's okay for now, because one thing I was thinking is like woodworking in itself is such a huge field. I don't think you'll ever get bored of it. Like, there's
Mhm.
custom furnitures, there's scroll saws, there's power carving. So there's so much in that field that like just try it, try everything,
Yep.
um, and kind of decide for yourself like what do you think is best for your like your artistic side, and then what you enjoy the most and what you're going to be able to do the best in.
Yeah.
So I would say I'm still kind of figuring it out.
Mhm.
I've seen things I've liked, I've seen things I haven't. Um, so I think it's a process.
It is, and I want to say it's like I think it's at least for me. I continue to pivot, right? Like
Yeah.
January will make 5 years of having my business, and you know, not a single one of them has been a profitable year. Um, and I think that's because it's like I don't know. I'm trying to learn to give myself the grace of like, I just haven't figured it out yet, right? Like, I just haven't, like, I know I enjoy making, I know I enjoy like sharing that in a more like inspirational way versus like a tutorial way. Like, I've
Yeah.
figured that out about myself. What I haven't figured out is like how I would want to like sustain monetizing all of that in a way to make real money so that that can be like my only job.
Yeah.
So I haven't figured that out. And I think I mean, to your point, like, yes, like power carving is one of my main things. And then like, dyeing wood is one of my main things. Those are the two I'm like trying to focus on right now. That doesn't stop me though from like, my brain is constantly like, ooh, but I want to go try that. And I want to go try that. I want to go try that. Um, and so it's like, I think it's like, it's okay to still go try those things. Like, there's nothing saying you can't. And there's nothing saying that if I go do those things and love them, that I have to try to make money off of it. Like, I could
Yeah.
just do it because I want to. Um, I want to say like congrats on like buying the CNC. That's like a potential in my future as well.
Yeah.
And just because I see like some serious potential with it of like being able to do more mass produced things, maybe being able to do like some more like commercial, type
Yeah.
things. Um, Even that being said, though, I still look at it and go, whew, like, again, how do I monetize it? Like, I see the potential, but it's like, I feel like you do have to try to still dial that in of
Yeah.
like what you're going to make with it once you get it.
Even harder because it's so many possibilities. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, let's focus on one thing.
Yeah. Exactly. So I've heard you say like a couple times now when you've been talking about it of like mentioning it as like art. So to you, like, do you feel like it's more what you enjoy about it, more like carpentry, woodworking skill based, or do you feel like it's more like an artistic expression for you?
Um, I'm not sure. I don't consider myself an artist. I'm not able to just like kind of pour my emotions into what I'm doing, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I do see the skill of woodworking as an art. I don't like like the same way not everyone can just draw an amazing
Mm-hmm.
portrait. Not everyone can build what like we're doing or like that sort of thing. So I do see it as an art, especially when pieces start becoming more unique. So I know with like your power carving, like those are your power carvings, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're not a a plan that everyone can go get and just make.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, I think that's art to me. That's the artist and the object being
Mm-hmm.
formed by yeah, the maker pretty much. Um so with that, I think I'm still not at that point where I can just be like, oh, I want to show my expressions or
Mm-hmm.
my art through my work. I would love to get there at some point, maybe in like lathe turning.
Mm-hmm.
But I I don't see myself as a like a expressive artist, I guess. But um, I do believe woodworking in itself is an art. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you there. I would say when I started, I always had a vision of being able to do more self-expression through it. Um, it took a really long time.
yeah,
I mean, I'm going on 20 years of dabbling and 9 years of serious, and it's been like the last year and a half,
yeah,
where it's like I can really like just go at something. And even then I can have ideas, but I don't, it's still a push for me of like, I don't know. I always think I like you, I always thought of art as like, I don't know, drawing and painting and like that kind of thing. And like, how people like they would paint something and then it's like, well, each person's going to interpret that painting differently.
yeah,
Um, like I always struggle with like, how do you make woodworking get that same reaction of like being something that each individual is going to take something different away from it. While also, for me personally, I always feel like it still has to be functional. Like I'm not just going to make something just to make something.
Yeah.
In general, though I am currently, working on my first like wall art piece, but still it's like,
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
it's still like, usually it's like, it's going to be a table or a bowl. It's like still going to be something that is like useful. Not that art isn't, but it's just, I still want it to be a functional piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say like be patient with yourself because it takes time to like get there. Do you work on like designing your own pieces? Like do you make stuff for your own space?
I would love to, I think, because so many orders kept coming in. I wasn't able to. I just did what they were wanting.
Mhm.
But I have always wanted to be able to sit down and kind of just do my own thing and then maybe sell it off after
Mhm.
for it to be appreciated for what I made with it, or for it just to be in my own home.
Mhm.
Um, but I just haven't been able to find the time to do that. Um, in the back of my head, there's always ideas floating around, and it's like I would love that, but when it comes to like the time and the money to be able to do it, I don't think I quite have that yet. And I guess that's where like um, the DIY community, I feel like the woodworking and the DIY community are kind of separate communities, but
Mhm.
also together. But I don't know. I've seen a difference in the DIY community where that's mostly like what they love and they implement into their own homes. And I think that's awesome. But I'm at a time in a place where like I can't really quite do that, mostly because I'm renting, moving a
Yeah.
lot. Um, so I do like appreciate their art from far away, but I can't really dabble in that right now.
Mhm.
So if it was to be like kind of my own designs, it would have to be some sort of furniture, um, and then just sell it off to be appreciated for what it is. But I just haven't gone around to it.
Yeah. Hey makers, today's episode is sponsored in part by toolmomstore.com. At toolmomstore.com, you can find any and all tool-based merchandise for all genders, all sizes. They've got mugs, they've got shirts, all kinds of cool stuff. I have one of the shirts myself that has the hashtag woodworker on it. And I also have a couple of the mugs that define what and who is a tool chick. So super excited with the merchandise that I have. I know that you will be satisfied as well. And also great discount for those of you who listen to the podcast. At checkout, if you enter the code MAKERMOM, you will get a 20% discount off any of the merchandise that you buy. So that's just toolmomstore.com. All right, let's head back into the action. No, I totally understand that. It was basically until this, again, pretty much like pandemic time frame that I decided I'm like, I'm gonna make stuff for my own house.
Yeah.
Like, and it's still all furniture. I still, quite frankly, suck when it comes to any kind of interior designing. Like, yeah, our home still to me feels very much like we just moved in, even though we've been here like 8 years.
The minimalist design.
It's very minimalist design. And so it's like a very similar thing. It's like I want to do projects for my home, but I don't even know where to like start. And like how to design it or what aesthetic I like. Which is
Yeah.
funny because I'm like, I can figure that out for furniture, but I can't figure it out for when it comes to like room spaces. I just,
My friends laugh at me because they're like, you build all this stuff for everybody, and then your stuff just ends up being like just random stuff. And I'm like, I don't have time and I can't. And then with my own things. Like what?
Mhm.
Yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from.
Um, so I want to also touch on, because you brought it up, about like the mental health kind of aspect of it. Um, I mean, several, people that I've had as guests on the podcast, a lot of times think of woodworking as therapy to help with kind of mental health struggles. Do you feel like when you've been having those struggles or feeling like overwhelmed, is it more the business aspect? Like, does the actual making help with any of that, or do you feel like you felt kind of just completely overwhelmed?
I would say at the beginning when I first started building, I think it was a huge therapeutic thing for me because it was such a newfound love for it and newfound excitement.
Mhm.
Um, but it was very therapeutic. It was very helpful. But then again, when I like it got out of hand, kind of got ahead of me. Um, it started becoming more overwhelming and more of not the main reason, but a reason my mental health was struggling.
Mhm.
So at that point, that's where I kind of had to wake myself up and be like, if you don't stop now, you will hate what you're doing. You will never
Mhm.
want to do it again. Um, so I've learned to pretty much, yes, some of the things I do are more business focused, but I have learned to find things to do in woodworking for myself that are more therapeutic to kind of
Mhm.
keep that balance. Um, and also, like, my whole main goal is to be able to implement mental health woodworking therapy into woodworking. So, like, therapy
Mhm.
into woodworking therapy. Yeah. Um, and I would love to do that. I think I have a huge passion for mental health. I would love to be an advocate and be able to show people how you can combine woodworking and therapy
Mhm.
together, and not even in like a like even just be able to do something and prove yourself something. I think that's therapy.
Mhm.
You learn about yourself, I think. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that's definitely a learning thing for me. I guess again, like boundaries, just setting boundaries for yourself and being like, this is business, this is hobby.
Mhm.
um and maybe you'll get to a point where like your hobby you can turn into a business while keeping limits for yourself
Mhm.
and not ruining that for yourself. But I think that's a learning curve for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I would say, like, yeah, I mean, as somebody who um also struggles with like mental health, I know that um that making is one of those things that it's like it definitely helps, even if it's just, I don't know, even if it's just 5 minutes of like going out and doing something with my hands.
Yeah.
um it completely helps. And that's usually actually one of the ways, or my barometer of like, where am I at mentally? Because if there's a point where it's like I cannot even get the motivation to go out to the shop, then I'm like, ooh, I'm not in a good headspace if that is where I'm at. Because
Oh, I love that. I hadn't even thought about that.
yeah, it's like I need to, because that just fills my cup so much, because so much of it is focused on just me, and also like keeping me out of my head. It's like you have to focus on what you're doing.
Yeah.
You can't just like wander off in your head. So it's a physical manifestation of working through stuff. um and I think it brings all the same benefits of um like any other physical activity. They say like physical activity, exercise and stuff is good for your mental health. I think woodworking or making falls into that same category.
Yeah.
Um, So I love that you want to like be able to kind of incorporate that passion going forward. When you first started and you were like, your thought was, even with that test about the carpentry coming up, your thought was like, well, I'm a girl. This is this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Um, I mean, is that like when you were growing up and stuff, did you have any examples around you of um people making or women making?
No, absolutely not. I didn't even have like anyone near that did any kind of making. Yeah, I think that's why the stigma stuck to me so much, because it's like it's just what you hear.
Mm-hmm,
Um, but once I got into the community, that was definitely broken, like completely. Like going in, you see women building such amazing things, their own things,
mm-hmm,
and I did hear some like people warn me like, oh, the men get really like rude, but I personally, I can say I've never had that issue. If anything, like they'll message me, and or I know I can message them whenever and they'll help me through whatever process I'm needing.
mm-hmm,
I've never been discouraged um, by a male, I guess.
mm-hmm,
If anything, I've found so much trust and community in them. Um, Same with the women, of course, like
mm-hmm,
obviously relatable, like we can relate to each other. Um, but yeah, growing up, I was never shown anything like that. But once I think, yeah, as I said, once I went into the community, instantly all those stigmas I think were definitely broken and done
mm-hmm.
away with. And yeah.
What does your family think about you doing this as work?
I will say I think my immediate family completely supportive. They just want to see me do what I excel in. But I have a few family members from my side and from my husband's side that have kind of voiced like, oh, like, shouldn't you like go get like a real job, or shouldn't you leave that to the males? So like in that sense, like I've had issues with that.
Mm-hmm,
But again, like I know what I love to do. I know what I want to do. And so at that point, it's like, you know, um, I'm going to stay true to myself.
mm-hmm,
The people that matter the most to me have been the most supportive. And so, like, there's always going to be people out there that kind of stand in your way, but just learn to love yourself, learn what you love to do, and keep going for it.
mm-hmm. Yeah. How have you felt like I agree. I think once you find, especially once you find the maker community um, online, especially if you follow kind of like the DIY type accounts, I think there's definitely more diversity of gender. How have you felt as far as like diversity as far as ethnicity goes?
Um, in the woodworking community,
Yeah.
um, I don't know. Like, I think it is a male prominent
Mm-hmm.
area, but with that being said, there's not a lack of women showing up for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I can straight up the bat think of like Annika,
Mm-hmm.
um, diverse women. So, and I think she's one of like my biggest role models in a
Mm-hmm.
way. So I've always looked up to her, and I've always like just watched everything she does. So to me, it was never an issue just because like she was such a big person
Mm-hmm.
in the thing that I was like, oh, no, it's not a problem. Um, I don't know. I think there is definitely a smaller number of like diversity in it, but it doesn't mean I feel excluded by any means. If anything, I guess it makes me more proud to be in it, to be like one of the few, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I haven't really like sat down to think about that one, just because I haven't felt left out, I guess, per
Hmm.
se. Like I've felt included. Yeah.
Well, that's good. And yeah, Annika is definitely a good example. And there's, a few others, and even like Anna White and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, which I think it's good having them as examples in that space.
Yeah.
Um, do you feel like any of that plays into some of like what you've had from like ex- extended family, um, or maybe people outside of like the woodworking community?
Why they see it as such a
Yeah,
male dominant thing?
yeah.
Um, I would say it's mainly from my family. I think it's because I grew up in a pretty Hispanic home. So culture there is a lot of males do this, women do this.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that's just like older culture norms that are
Hmm.
expected. Um, but and then other people, I think it's just they see jobs or like substantial jobs as like these set things like medicine or
Hmm.
business or but I think it's the lack of knowledge in seeing that like you can make a living from whatever you set your mind to pretty much.
Hmm.
And I don't know the reason why they come at it from that angle. I kind of have never really looked into it because I don't like entertaining those
Hmm.
sort of like comments. Um, but from my side of the family, I would say I think it's just more of a culture norm.
Hmm.
Um, but slowly, slowly that starts to like break away.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Um, yeah. And then hopefully just like even seeing you do it like can provide that example for like younger women,
yeah,
in your extended family and stuff, that can be like, oh, that could be something I could do.
yeah.
Yeah. um I'm watching our time here, so we're getting like right at the end, and I want to make sure that you get a chance to let people know um, how to find you and follow along with you and see what you're up to.
Okay, yeah. My main way of finding me is definitely on Instagram. It's at wildly capable carpentry. And there I have a website kind of working on that. So it's not the best place to go right now, but definitely on Instagram would be the main way to contact me at the moment, or email, which I think my email is on my Instagram. Hopefully, I'll double check that soon. But yeah, definitely my Instagram.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks, Leilani, for talking to me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for doing what you do. I love being able to like hear real time stories of people finding what they love and a real timeline of like what it takes to grow into it, because a lot of people expect to hear just success right off the bat.
Right.
And I love hearing the realistic side of it and like knowing kind of like the milestones you have to pass or like challenges you have to go through to get to where you are. I think that's some of the most motivational stuff, because it's like you don't feel alone because your story isn't going to be perfect, and
Right.
hearing everyone else's isn't either kind of like helps you out a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
So, yeah.
All right. So again, that was Leilany of Wildly Capable Carpentry. I'll include the links on how you can follow along with her in the show notes for today's episode. So you can find those in a variety of places. One of them being the description for today's episode on the podcast app you're listening to this on. The other, if you happen to be watching this on YouTube, you can find it in the description box down below. And the third is if you go to freemanfurnishings.com/podcast, you will find this episode along with all of the past episodes and the links and all the goodies for following everybody else as well. If you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure that you subscribe, follow, and leave a review, especially over on iTunes and Spotify and wherever you get your podcast. I really, really appreciate that. And make sure to follow along with the podcast over on Instagram, just at Crafting a Revolution. Hope to see you all over there. All right. When I am not making podcast episodes, you can find me making furniture and home decor and power carving and dancing in my shop and all kinds of crazy shenanigans at freemanfurnishings.com and at Freeman Furnishings across pretty much all of the social media platforms. I'm active most regularly on Instagram, so just find me over there at Freeman Furnishings and say hi. All right, it is halfway through the week. I hope you all are having a great week so far. And as always, let's go craft a revolution.
She, her, them, they got something they want to say. Solution for the toxic masculinities. Pollution is